Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the Travi Wavi. We're coming to you live once again from beautiful downtown historic Abilene, storybook capital of America. We are at the Neon Parrot Live Studios, located next door to the Majestic Coffee Shop down here on Pine Street. We'd love for you to come down any Thursday morning and be part of our live audience as we podcast this wonderful content to you. This morning, I have a wonderful guest, a special guest, a good friend of mine and a mentor, Jeff Bell.
Hey, buddy.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for inviting me.
Man, it's good to have you.
It's been a minute. I haven't seen you in a minute.
Oh, we used to sit and have breakfast burritos before we'd make beer
Yes.
at Pappy's.
Yes, we
But
did.
before we get into that, let's just get to know you a little bit. So, you have some siblings.
I do. Yeah, I have two older sisters. I'm the baby boy of two. I have one that's 6 years older than me, and the other one is 9 years older than me. Both still live in Clyde. We're Clyde kids.
Clyde, America.
Yep. Both my parents have passed away. My mother passed away earlier this year. February of last year. So it's just me and my girls.
You and your girls.
Yep.
And you have a beautiful wife, Margie.
Do
And a brood of your own children.
We do. We have
Grandchildren.
4 combined kiddos. We were a combined family. So I had a son, Jaron, who was how old is Jaron now? 37 or so, give or take. Yeah. And then I married Margie, and she had 2 girls, Taylor and Morgan. They're both live here locally in Abilene. And then Margie and I had Banner, our youngest, together, who's 24, just turned 24.
And she just got married to
Just
Will
got married last spring.
last
so
spring.
yeah,
They're doing
to her
good.
hubby Will. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
It's good. And so we met many years ago through the Homebrew Club.
Yep.
How did you get involved in the Homebrew Club?
Myself and Brian Kokenauer, who was one of my partners at the brewery, we went through the police academy together, and we had both just gotten out of the military. I started homebrewing in 1995. Couldn't find the beers. You know, I'd been overseas in Germany. Couldn't find the beers that I liked to drink that I learned to love over there. So people down here kept saying, "You ought to try. I try making your own. I try making your own." Well, I bought my dad a Mr. Beer kit from out here at Dias at the BX, and we made beer one time. My dad was kind of old school. He didn't particularly care for it. He liked his Miller Genuine Draft, but he said, "Good job, and you guys should keep doing that." And so, sure enough, we did. And 2007, we decided to start a homebrew club here. We had one a while back called the Bible Belt Brewers for a while in Abilene, but it kind of went by the wayside. So Brian and I decided we're gonna start a new homebrew club, and that's when I met you.
That's right. And so when I joined the club, it was relatively early on. I don't remember the year I joined, but some of the Bible Belt brewers from the initial clan kind of moved over into our homebrew club.
Yep.
And I remember going up to Dallas to the Blue Bonnet.
Yep.
And I think that was one of the first times that we all really got to hang out and spend a weekend together and throw up lots of craft beer.
Yeah, that was an experience that had to be experienced
You had
instead
to.
of just talking about it, because you could tell people all day long, "Hey, this is a marathon. You can't sprint through this thing."
No,
And
you got to have that water with you the
there
whole
was
time.
a lot of sprinters, boy, and they would. You could tell the next
could
day
tell.
they'd be sitting on the bus going,
Oh.
"Man," or-
But some of the best beer I've ever had was at places like Blue Bonnet.
Yep.
With just people making beer in their garage or their backyard or their kitchen and sharing. Say, try this.
You got to have this. And we started, that became one of our big functions of the year. You built the bar for us, and we would take that thing up there, and they had homebrew night. And so one of the big events was where people would, from different homebrew clubs, would establish their bar, and people would just come around and try all their beers. And so it was kind of a enlightening thing too. We realized that as a group, Abilene made really good beer.
We're good.
We had a lot of really good home brewers, and
Lots
so
of contests
Yeah.
won, medals taken.
bunch of medals. So it was a good time.
I remember the first time we went and experiencing that homebrew night, going from bar to bar. And I don't remember what we had that first year. Maybe just tables and kegs. It was
Yeah.
pretty basic.
Yeah.
And being the scenic guy that I am, the designer, I was like, we could do better than
Yeah,
this.
the wheels started turning.
And I I don't know if you were the one that got the refrigerator
I
for
did,
that.
yeah,
But we sourced a refrigerator,
yep.
big old heavy son of a
Oh
gun.
yeah, and you made like the transformer
And
thing.
then it was like, what can we do with this?
Yeah.
And just turned it into a cool
Yeah.
Western bar. Is
It
it
was
still
neat.
around? Is it still getting
I think
used?
they still have it.
Green Fury use it, maybe?
I think it's saved at Sam's out at
Oh,
Sunhouse maybe.
at Sunhouse
Yeah.
with Sam Pugh. That's
Yeah.
good. I'm glad it's still
Yeah, it's still here, and they kind of renovated it. They
spruced it
they
up.
spruced it up. It had been there for a hot minute, so
Yeah.
I think that it
I mean,
was
that's
getting
almost 20 years
yeah
old.
yeah. So they did some work on it and kind of fixed it up a little bit.
That's
and
good.
Last I heard, they were still using it.
One of the probably grossest memories I have is when we would have homebrew meetings at Vince Arena's warehouse, that
Yes,
warehouse
up
right
there
there
off of Ambler.
off of Ambler.
Yep.
And we'd have the bar set up. We'd have a good group of people, and so the bar had taps, and the drain tray was like a like a gutter, and the gutter flowed into a bucket, the used beer bucket,
Yeah.
that might even acquire cigarette butts at some point. And then
yeah.
the bad choices came in towards the end of the night,
Yes,
where we all
when
might
we
have a
had-
little sip of the
Yeah,
used beer
the
bucket.
used beer bucket. We said it was like everybody else's homebrew besides ours, right? But it was good. Yeah, we got kind of brave
We got
after a
little
few
brave.
beers. Yeah.
Absolutely, that's what pirates do.
Yeah, that's right.
And okay, so you're brewing beer. You're working for City of Abilene Police Department as a
Yep.
detective.
Mhm.
And at what point did you decide I want to go into business for myself and try to sell this beer that I make?
See, when you homebrew enough and you win medals and you win accolades, you start thinking, my beer's good enough to be. I could sell this stuff.
Yep.
I could sell it. And so we always kind of had that in the back of our mind that we made good enough beer that at some point in time we could sell it. And so probably, I'd been at the department maybe 15, 16 years. And I kept thinking, when I retire, I'll still be young enough at 20-year retirement that I could do something. And so I credit Gary Bone. You know Gary.
Yeah, go Bone.
So we all started talking about it at some point in time. And we kept saying, he goes, why don't you open a brewery? And I was like, dude, I don't know anything about business. I don't know anything about getting a loan, small business loan. He goes, I've already opened a business. I can show you that. That's easy. So he got us in touch with Texas Tech, the Small Business Association. And man, once we realized this is all it takes is doing this, this, and this, we kind of ran with it. Gary originally was going to be part of the Pappy crew, but he wound up, tapping out. He decided he had too much stuff going on and wouldn't be able to give it the effort that he knew it would take. So, but I credit him all the time for helping us get started because we knew nothing about business. So, but by the time I had reached 20 years, after 20 years, I was kind of done. I'd done some of the hard work over at the PD. So it was time for me to venture off into something a little more laid back, a little less stressful. So little did I know that owning a business is pretty stressful too.
Yeah.
But, man,
Has its
who
own
knew, right,
pitfalls.
Sam? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so when we got close to 20, I decided, okay, I'm gonna pull the trigger, and we kind of had a plan, and so it took probably about another year for us actually after I had actually retired to build out the brewery that we needed and get the equipment and get the funding and all of that, and then we opened about I retired in October of 13, and then we were able to open June of 14, so a few months later.
June of 14. And Pappy Slocum Brewing was on China Street here in Abilene.
Yep.
Which is now the Bike Handle
Yep.
Bar?
Handlebar.
Handlebar.
Yep. The petty bike guy.
I have not been
Seth,
back in,
he's a
but
super good dude.
I just have too much nostalgia.
I have
still.
actually went in there and I had drinks, and it's eerily similar to Pappy, but it's different
It's its
in a
own thing.
lot of cool ways.
Good.
He did some things that we had wished we could have done.
Good.
Our big cold rooms now are little private karaoke rooms.
Okay.
They're insulated and they're in there.
That's fun.
really cool. Really cool setup.
Good.
And Seth's a great dude. So.
Good. Well, best wishes to that as they continue
Yep.
to move forward.
Yep.
So Pappy's you started it with with a couple partners.
Yep. Brian Kokenauer and Richie Wagner.
And you guys got the business going. What were some of the more difficult things? I mean, you talked about like the small business plan and loans, but working with TABC, working with a graphic designer for
whoever that
labels,
guy
and like
was.
how was all that process?
We probably the first and the hardest thing that we did was how to deal with each other as partners, what our roles were going to be, what our expectations were. We got crossways a few times, and as a partner with partners in a business, I think that just goes with the territory because everybody has a vision of how they want things to go, and unfortunately, you can't just run with something. You have to run it and bounce it off the other guys because they have an equal share.
Well, and money's on the line too.
It is, yeah,
so
it is.
Just
so
the stakes are higher.
Yep. So that was challenging, but that was challenging all through the process. Initially, finding the funding to do what we wanted to do, and I don't think, in hindsight, I don't think we went about it completely the right way. I think we started too small, and I think we didn't add the food component that we probably should have. But at the time, the going business model was to produce beer, send it out into the market, and then just have a tap room on the weekends. The brew pub model, which you'll see like Grain Theory is a perfect example of how that can work. They have the food component, they have the coffee component, they have the beer, the venue, all kind of in one spot. And then now they're in the process of opening up a production facility to do just the kegs and cans for everybody out in the marketplace. So I think had we have maybe invested in the mindset of embracing that business model instead of going the way we did and going a little bit bigger. Yeah. Because we struggled, and you brewed a lot of beer for us. And 200 gallons at a time.
It's not enough.
It's not enough.
No.
And especially when you're trying to venture out. We were in Wichita Falls. We had Lubbock. We had Amarillo.
San Angelo.
A lot of different. We had beer all over the place. Probably too far away because we had a hard time keeping up. Yeah. And then obviously COVID hit, and we had some issues there.
Was the game changer in that
for us. Yeah.
So going back to like production, because it's something that I've always argued about, also as a home brewer, right? That I think, like you said, all home brewers fantasize that one day they're gonna have their beer on the market. It's just the nature of the beast.
Sure.
But so anyway, my 2 cents on what scale do you need to start a brewery at continues to get more ingrained in me, especially after watching, being a part of the Pappy's team, being with y'all for the whole experience, watching Sock come and go, watching Grain Theory success, watching Sam and Carl, and if I'm forgetting anybody, forgive me. But it seems like I don't want to pick on anybody, but it seems like nobody has the scale yet.
Right.
7 barrels is just not enough.
No, I don't think so.
To get it out the door.
Sam is probably the only one that doesn't really affect because he's in a good position because he lives on the property. The property is his.
Yep.
He has a small footprint.
Yep.
But his footprint is very feasible. Overhead is low. So he doesn't have to worry about that now.
Sam Pugh at Sunhouse
Yep.
makes beer and has a business model similar to my tattoo business model.
Exactly.
It's just
right
low,
off your house. Yep.
Quiet. Yep. Off the beaten path.
Yep. Makes great beer. Does his thing and does it well, and just stays in his little
pocket
niche. Yep. Right there. And
but also knowing that that's kind of it. Like it's never going to.
Yeah. He's kind of landlocked there.
Yep.
He can't venture too much bigger. I mean, he could, but he'd have to invest a whole bunch of money and do some things, which would then defeat the purpose of what he's doing. I think so. Carl's smaller, but he's a kind of a one-man show. So he's only got to make enough money to worry about him. And kind of the same thing with Sam.
Yeah.
Sam and his wife, they're the only ones, So they're in a little different model. So small might work for them. I'm pretty sure that short of 90 barrel brew house, nobody's ever going to make any money. We're not going to get rich for
Yeah.
sure. Especially when you're at the size that like Grain Theory is. There's 3 of those guys plus whatever investors they have. I don't know the dynamics there, but you know, it may be a comfortable living, but I don't know that anybody's ever going to. You're not going to be Jim Cook from.
One of the thought experiments I used to do with my son, who also worked with us at Pappy's for a period of time, when we would be up there washing kegs or running the canning line or brewing a batch, and thinking about, because when you're in that environment, you're always thinking about beer out the door. You know, like we got to get. We got a truck coming that's going to take this to wherever. We got to get beer out the door. And so my thought experiment was, how many semis do you want to pick up a day? And that's where that's what you should start thinking. If you want to make beer, how many semis do you want to come pick up your product every day? And start with what it takes to do that. And even though it's, like you said, 90 barrels, I was going to say 15 barrels would be my lowest that I would go.
Exactly.
But
that's
90
exactly
would be better.
I wish we had started with at least a 15 barrel brew house. We found ourselves, once we started getting a really good foothold, we had to double brew. We'd get there early before the sun came up, and we'd brew all day, do double batches. So
and it still wasn't even close.
It still wasn't enough. Yeah, and so we would do that 2 or 3 times a week, and then we had to wait. Because then we had to wait for that beer to get done, to clean out fermenters, to move them to the bright tanks and the keg or can, and then we started the process all over again.
And I think a lot of people don't appreciate the actual production. Like, what does it take to make beer? It's actually not that hard, but it's extremely technical. It's a lot of science, and there's a ton of art, but it takes time. Like, it would take us about 8 hours from start to finish, give or take, to make. We had 7 barrel brew house to make 7 barrels, and then if we do that again, that's a 12 to 16 hour day plus cleanup, and then it needs to sit. So that the making the beer is basically the boiling of the soup to keep it simple. But then that soup has to sit at a held temperature until we found some miracle yeast. But it needed to stay at a held temperature, usually colder, like in the 40s or 50s. And it varies, right? For each, what you're making, whether it's local yellow, would sit maybe longer. Because it's a clear beer. So when you're drinking your Miller Lite, that had to sit for a period of time.
Yeah, those beers take more time and more effort, and being consistent with those beers is very, very important. And so the guys everybody poo-poos on Coors, Miller, and Bud, but they make a very, very clean, consistent product,
and a lot of it,
and they make it at 3 or 4 different breweries across the country, and each one tastes identical to the one that was brewed in wherever.
Which is, we've talked about this as homebrewers too, or water, the quality of the flavor and qualities of your water, the mineral contents, it has a huge impact on the outcome of your product.
It does.
Anyway, so just going back to the process, the beer's got to sit, it has to ferment, that takes time. You have to move that product to another vessel to let it sit and let the rest of the proteins and whatever else is in there fall out. And then you still have to package it in a keg or in a can. And so that there's a lot of time and labor that goes into making a product. And you're hoping that your return is in the tap room, where you can charge a little bit more for each pour versus in a can.
Your margin of profit is much higher in-house than it would be beer that you send out to the grocery store or to, say, another bar or restaurant, whatever.
So would you say overall owning a brew house was harder than you thought, easier than what you expected?
It was a very enlightening experience, because like I said earlier, I said that I had never had any business experience. So just being a business owner in and of itself was completely new to me. And then top that off with brewing at a scale that I had never done before, and then packaging in ways I had never done before was crazy harder than I envisioned it in my mind all those years,
What if you could go back and change a couple of things about any aspect of it, what would you go back with hindsight?
Unfortunately, I probably would pick a different location too, as much as I loved where we were and what that felt like.
Yeah.
I don't think it was big enough. I don't think it was in the appropriate spot in town to be attractive to just foot traffic. I was so surprised when we closed down as to how many people still didn't know we existed. And we thought we had just cornered the market in Abilene. But there were still people that
No idea.
had no clue what we were or who we were.
Yep.
So,
I would give out 6-packs of local Yella, stripper dust all the time, to people just to keep that brand and marketing in people's faces. And yeah, I mean, if you knew about it, it was your favorite.
Yep.
And there was nobody else. And it was all about Pappy's and Pappy's beer.
We
But
had
if
some
you
of the
didn't
oldest
know,
customers,
if you didn't know, then you were totally, oh, what? You guys have a brewery in Abilene?
Yep.
It's run by 3 cops? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Best beer and best beer.
We didn't fit the normal dynamic of a brewery, kind of thing. But we had, and I mentioned it, we did have some of the lowest, and we still do. I still get contacted by people all the time. Man, I miss Tripper. Ain't no chance you can make some at home.
Can you send me some?
Whatever, Yeah.
Sam,
Thanks, Sam. We'll work on that. So.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we could probably gypsy brew over at Grain Theory's new brew house if we could schedule that.
Figure something out. Yeah.
Do a good old batch for the good old days.
Just for
I don't know. I don't miss getting up at 4 in the morning in the summer to go.
I don't either.
Go in there and do it.
I realized that I worked very hard physically because when I didn't anymore, I put on like 25 pounds.
Bro, I used to feel jacked.
Me too. Lifting kegs and grain bags. And
not anymore. I feel weak now.
Me neither.
There is something
I'm an old
kind
man
of
now,
powerful about being working in a brewery.
Yep.
It's very
powerful. I got a lot of steps in. I never put on a watch, but I guarantee you I got over 10,000 steps a day because the way our brewery was set up, you'd have to walk from side to side and up the steps. And, man, you were moving and shaking all day long.
I tell people the best, or if you want to become a brewer, just, practice your mopping skills.
Yeah, it's like
pretty much all I did was mop.
high-paid janitor, kind of is what it is.
Oh, we could do a lot of war stories about the brew house. I think besides the Saturdays and seeing everybody, because Pappy's really did create its own church, its own community, and I miss that desperately.
Too.
It hasn't come back yet.
No, and in hindsight, especially, you don't really feel it when you're in the middle of it. But we created kind of a movement, I think, between us and then the guys over here at Abbey House, Public House, Neon Parrot. This whole part of downtown, and just the vibe changed. With the Vagabond Pizza, Jay's Barbecue. Yep. All those guys were food trucks. They showcased their stuff at our place, and then they moved on to bigger and better things.
Abilene axe throwing.
Yep.
Man, there's a bunch more too.
Tons of stuff that kind of started small and started hovering around our stuff.
I think Pappy's was responsible for all the other breweries that have started. Even today, the Grain Theory guys were part of the Homebrew Club.
They were. Yep.
Sam Pugh came and worked with us and was in the Homebrew Club.
He did.
Carl might be the black sheep in that one.
He's probably the only one that really wasn't a part of the Homebrew Club at first.
But he's definitely been associated with everybody since and part of the team.
Yep.
Sock. I think we inspired Sock to start.
Yep. I think they got the idea sitting out there drinking our beer. And we even stored some of their equipment when they first got it. We stored it back there till they secured their location. So.
Well, and that's okay. So that's something else, just as a business owner and as a member of this community, that I've always admired about you. Is when you started Pappy's, you were so welcoming and open to everybody else that was trying to copy you and what you were doing, and just you didn't gatekeep. You were always so helpful and open and honest with everybody. Heck, Carl used to come wash kegs on our kegerator. It was very much a community of entrepreneurs and creatives trying to do something different, to make a movement.
I think so, and I think had we have been those guys that we didn't talk about it. We didn't share our recipes. We didn't share grain. We didn't do any of that stuff. I don't think Pappy's would have been the same.
No.
So I think just the whole mindset of this is all family, you know, and it to me, it was our customers, our employees, the people that in the other businesses that worked around us and with us, they were all family, still are, you know. We just don't get to hang out as much as we used to. So,
would you agree that COVID was the coffin nail?
I think so. I think because everything after COVID kind of changed. When you take a hit financially the way we did in 2020, you know, because they shut us down several times, and then we tried to do the drive-through thing. And first, Abilene they came out in droves. They were driving through the little drive-through and buying to-go beer and
Stick
you know,
Ashley up there in the window.
Yep. Her and her little dog up there selling 6-packs. You know, so. But after a while, the reality of what was going on with people, I've got to save my money. So people, they would still support, but they couldn't support as much. You know, so. And we understood that, and I think everybody involved in any kind of business at the time, they got it. But losing that kind of money in 2020, and then not having, it became more of a logistics problem in 2021 going into 2022. Lead time on cans went from 5 weeks to 12 or 13 weeks. Being able to get in certain kind of grains, just different things, and then the price markup that went with that. At some point in time, you know, we realized we weren't ever going to make any kind of money. The only person that was would have been making any money would be the distributor at that point, you know, because they got their consistent cut. So for us, we'd have had to sell beer for like $20 a 6-pack, and people, that's not fair to people, you know.
Yep.
Even though I thought we made some really good beer, but you wouldn't be able to sell it for that.
Yep.
You know, so I think it just came time that we figured out that the logistics aren't behind this, and that goes back to what we said about size and amount. And we weren't big enough to buy a tractor trailer full of cans to get a good enough discount to make it worth our while.
Yep.
And we didn't have that kind of money just sitting somewhere that we could do that.
It's the
you know?
bottleneck.
Exactly.
We experienced it, and COVID really
made it worse.
Made it worse. Yeah, put the squeeze on harder.
It did.
What else would you change if you could go back with hindsight?
Start bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we talked about.
Different location.
Different location. And as bad as I hate to say it, I love my partners, but maybe not be a partnership.
Do it as a sole proprietor or as a leader of a team.
Something like that. Not that, like I said, not that I don't regret anything.
Yeah.
But it was harder to navigate that than I thought. And I'm sure my partners felt the same way. So, not that I would ever say we didn't do a good thing, but I just don't know if it would be easier maybe if it was just one person. So
yeah, it's tough to have a lot of chiefs in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And
and it makes you harbor bad feelings for a minute, you know, and it's taken a while to get past all that, you know. At some point in time, you know, friendship's more important than we work together and we argue about this or that, you know. So that's something I probably would have changed.
Yeah. So at what point did you decide to step away from the brewery and go back to work?
Before we closed down, I had already kind of stepped away. I hired Sean Boss, retired Air Force guy.
Yep.
Great dude. I kind of gave him a expedited course in how to do what I did. He did a good job.
He did a good job.
So I had already gone just from the standpoint of, you know, my family was struggling. You know, I had a 20-year retirement from the police department, but it wasn't enough to do what we would need to do as a family. So I figured, you know, I'll hire somebody to do what I do, and then I'll go back and get me a job, and I'll still be there to consult and do that stuff. So it's probably year and a half before we closed that Sean ran the show. You know, I would take some time off and I would go up there and help canning days or help do certain things, and then you helped, TJ helped,
Sam Pugh helped.
Sam, yep. So
yeah, a lot of good people.
Yep.
A lot of people volunteered and
Yep.
and gave their time and energy to keep it going.
Yep. It just got to where it wasn't sustainable for us. You know, I mean, we could have kept flatlining and just keep going, but that wasn't fun. It had got to where it wasn't fun anymore. The logistics wasn't fun, and the struggle wasn't fun. You know, so
Just felt like spinning your wheels.
yeah, it felt like it. You know, and it was hard to walk away from the culture we had built, but I think it was necessary. So,
if you could do it again, would you?
oh yeah, probably. I'd do it in a different way, and
Yeah.
like I said, in a different location, and I wouldn't do it as a 60-year-old, but I
Do it
couldn't.
as the brains of the 60-year-old?
Yeah, I could do that. You know, I could be the thinking guy. I couldn't be the lifting guy anymore. You know, just because. But yeah, I think it's given the right circumstances, it would be doable. You know, but I don't miss the day-to-day struggle.
No, I don't blame you. I don't miss the day-to-day struggle either.
I know, right?
No. I mean, I miss hanging out with you and
Yeah.
driving the forklift.
Yeah, that's pretty cool stuff.
Have a beer on tap if you need one.
There you go.
What is your biggest success, you think, about that chapter of your life?
Pappy chapter. Probably just the community that we built. I think. I think like I said, I feel like we kind of started a culture here, beer culture for sure. Even back when we started the homebrew club, I think it kind of started then because we reached out to distributors and merchants and asked them, "Hey, can you get this beer?" Asked the distributor, "Can we get these beers? Because my people will buy them." And because liquor stores and grocery stores, they just wanted to carry the big five. You know, at the time,
what
didn't.
they know.
Yeah, they didn't know what Sierra Nevada was, or any of the craft beer stuff. So when we started hitting the distributors up, "Can you get this? Can you get that?" "Oh yeah, we can get that." We just didn't know anybody here cared about it. So you get a couple of vendors that say, "Okay, I'll take 2 cases of that and see what happens." And then they'd tell us, "Hey, we got that beer in," and we as a club would show up and just buy them out.
Yep. Vote with our
And just
dollars.
kinda,
Yep.
And then they were like, "Okay, we'll buy 3 next time." You know, it's things like that. So I kind of feel like that culture even started maybe even before we opened up the brewery.
I think so.
And then, like you said, we had partnered with guys like Vagabond Pizza. You know, those guys came out and they were our first and only food truck for a whole minute. You know, and then Jay's Barbecue, some of those guys that have open brick and mortars, Rock and Rollers. You know, those guys were there, and it was every Saturday was an event. It just felt like it. People showed up to see what food truck it was, what new beer we had on tap.
Yep.
And so
Dogs and kids.
yes,
And just
everybody
laughter,
hanging out,
good
music,
times.
and just chilling out there. It's like drinking beer in your friend's backyard, you know.
Yep.
So that part of it, I think, really, if I had to pick the best part for me, some of the best times were just sitting around watching people enjoy themselves. So it was good stuff.
I agree with that. And I think it's, that culture really does rest on you in a big way, because I experienced that with the homebrew culture before Pappy's. And I think that, you were the president during the time that I was on the board. I think you and Margie and Brian and some other people like really were important in forming that family feeling.
Yeah.
That then carried over and transcribed into what we all experienced at Pappy's.
Yeah.
Well, that's on you, man.
I
Thank
was
you.
I appreciate that, man. I do. I mean, I feel like I miss that part of it. Like I said, I don't miss the day-to-day struggle, but I do miss that camaraderie that we had. I remember when Brian and I had the conversation about starting the homebrew club. He originally, I had been to the Great American Beer Festival in Denver. Margie and I had been, and I came back and I told him, I said, "Dude, you got to go. You don't have a clue what you're missing and what a beer culture is like." And him and Beverly went to the Great American Beer Festival, and he came back and he came to my house and he was like, "Dude, we got to do something here." And so it really motivated him, and in turn, he motivated me. And so, but I remember having that conversation. He was like, I can't imagine. You can't imagine. I said, I can imagine, dude. I've been the one that's been telling you. And he goes, I know, man. He goes, it was just the most wonderful thing. He goes, we got to do something. And it was actually his idea to start the homebrew club. He goes, we got to start a homebrew club. We'll start with that. So, all right, let's do it. You know, and then rest is history. So
I think it's interesting on the homebrew club subject that there have been people homebrewing in America. Let's keep it local.
Yeah.
For a period of, for a couple decades. But it was the internet in the late 90s that really helped spread that gospel because people could share resources.
Yep. Yeah, you didn't know. You could get online at some point in time in 90 whatever when the internet first got here. That you could get on and you could find recipes people had put online. You know,
it was like one of the first Reddits, basically.
Yeah.
As
There was
content.
There was a homebrew forum. It's called the Cat's Meow, and I remember printing off recipes, and then I would tweak them and change them to what I had. But then some of those recipes became the base for some of the recipes that we wound up using at Pappy's.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So we can thank the internet for helping to spread beer culture, for sure.
Thanks, Al Gore.
Thanks, Al Gore.
You're my hero. You're my guy.
Yeah, and also that awareness of voting with your dollars for the quality products that you want.
Yep.
I mean, very specifically remember consistently going to the big Walmart to buy the Sierra Nevada because they'd have one case there, and just making sure that whoever was stocking noticed that it was always gone.
Yep.
And I still do that
so
today.
they would keep getting it.
I still do that today.
Yep.
I'm a pretty brand loyal. I'm not going to mention it because I don't want you guys to go get it. So that there's some on the shelf for me. But I have more than once left a handwritten note in the cooler.
Please get more.
Yeah, like where's my brand?
Yeah, there you
Bring
go.
some more
That's
back.
funny. Yeah.
But it's stocked
The
now.
little stalker dude was like, "Who's that?" What the heck?
Yeah, but they do keep the all-day IPAs stocked pretty well for me now.
Good. That's a good one.
So you said, Wade, you're back working for the Sheriff's Department, Taylor County Sheriff's
Yeah, I work
Department.
for Taylor County Sheriff.
Detectiving.
Yep. Dramatic difference from APD, obviously. Size. Taylor County is a very large in size. 921 square miles that Taylor County encompasses. Population of the county is probably 160,000. Well, 130 of those are in the city of Abilene, so we deal with the rest of the population that lives out in Hamby and Tuscola and Buffalo Gap, Trent, Merkel,
All the
all
other
of that.
spots.
Yeah, all of that.
Have you enjoyed? Could you compare working for the Sheriff's Department to APD, like highlights, lowlights, or? Not sure how to ask that question. What are the differences for you?
The differences that I have seen, and I've been there almost 3 years. I'll be 3 years in just a couple of weeks. So Taylor County is very family-oriented as far as the employees. Sheriff Bishop, I got nothing bad to say about that guy. He's a benefit to the county. I can tell you that right now. I mean, I have been embraced. My family has been embraced. The workload is lower because we have a smaller footprint of people, but it's very similar crimes, just on a smaller scale as the city. Obviously, the city of Abilene is bigger, and they have bigger city issues than Trent, or whatever.
Not as much homelessness. In
Yeah.
Trent.
Yep. Not as much stuff that we deal with like that, but all in all, similar experience, a little more laid back because of the caseload and the call volume. But the agency in itself is very family oriented, very easy to work for. I've been blessed to be a part of that group for about 3 years now. So,
do you have another retirement goal with the Sheriff's Department?
Well, I bought a new pickup this last year, so I have to work till that truck's paid off. Margie told me I have to pay this pickup off before I can even think about it. So,
good.
But after that, we'll see where I'm at. So
cool. Yeah. Any more desire to do another business, or?
I have not really felt that, but I get the pull from my middle daughter, Morgan. She calls me all the time, Dad, we should do this. We should do that. she's kind of got that
Mm-hmm.
mindset, and so she throws out ideas every now and then, and I was like, well, that one's not too bad.
Yeah.
You know, that's not a bad one. You know, so I can't rule it out. But I probably will be maybe a sidebar on something she does or
Mm-hmm.
like that, because she's got the willpower and
She
the
got the
stamina
drive.
to drive to do
Mm-hmm.
it, and I'm just the old guy. So
Well,
I'm
and the
just gonna,
inspiration from you to
yeah,
see that you can
it can
try
happen.
something,
Yeah,
you know, and
yeah.
I think for me, you know, my perspective and observation on Pappy's is
Mhm.
similar to a lot of people's, but maybe a little unique just from my time there. But
Sure.
that was a huge success, and even though it didn't last
Hmm.
for a variety of different
Hmm.
complications, I still think that that was a huge, energetically a huge success for our community.
I think so. I think you're right, and I would classify it as a success too.
Hmm.
You know, didn't end the way we wanted it to
Right.
end. You know, we wanted to be huge and leave a legacy for our families. You know, but that didn't really transpire in that way. I think
Hmm.
we left a legacy in our to our families in an inspirational way, not necessarily a financial way or
Sure.
things like that. But I do feel like um, uh, I can be proud of what we did, and I think my partners can too.
Hmm.
I know my family is.
Hmm.
They're very proud of what we accomplished while
Hmm.
we had the time. So
Yeah, that was good.
yeah.
Um, so you grew up in Clyde, America,
Yep.
and have worked in and around Abilene, storybook capital of America. Kind of one of my final questions here,
Hmm.
Mr. Bell. But on this show, I like to have. It's selfish because I get to talk to the people that I want to talk to,
Sure.
but people that I think are key characters in this story. Um, how do you relate to that?
I do. I think if there was a character of an old sage guy who could influence people, maybe that would be me, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So if that were whoever that would be, maybe the owl on the Tootsie Roll commercial, or,
The
you
owl
know,
on the
yeah,
Tootsie Roll
or
commercial.
the old crusty owl on Winnie the Pooh, maybe. I don't know.
I like
But,
it.
you know, just that guy. And my role has changed
Mm.
even now at my new work. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I've gone from being the worker bee to still the worker bee, but I'm the one that I get to field a lot of questions because I've been there, done that
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing, you know. So walking from just being a detective and just being a dad into more of a mentorship role,
Mm-hmm.
um, I've kind of embraced that. I didn't really know what to think about it at first, but you know, it's kind of where I'm at now. I feel
Mm.
like I can be the one that makes it easier for the next group. You know, make it easier for my kids.
Mm.
You know, if I can steer them away from bad decisions, and you know, we as parents always
Mm-hmm.
think that, but you know, walk them into the right path. You know, spiritually had a really good couple of years.
Mm.
I went and walked to Emmaus
Oh,
a
good.
couple months ago.
Good.
Really blessed with that.
Mm.
Seeing my son-in-law go through that
Mm-hmm.
was a game changer, and watching him come back and being
Mm.
passionate about that. So,
Good.
just a whole different role and whole different part of my life. You know,
Mm-hmm.
this chapter, I don't like the being old and I don't like the being fat part, but I like the maybe being a little wiser,
Mm-hmm.
being a little more compassionate, a little bit
Mm.
willing to share. You know what I've experienced. I do like that part of getting to where I am now.
It's good. It's good. Any goals for yourself?
No, just keep walking the way I need to walk, and make my family proud,
Mm.
and helping them as best I can, and pay my truck off, and then see what happens.
It's good.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for your time today, friend. It's been
Travi, I
super
appreciate you,
good to
buddy.
sit and catch up, and
Yep,
maybe we'll get to brew a batch of beer together
that'd
again
be awesome.
someday just for shits and
That would be
giggles.
awesome.
Any questions you have for me?
No, just keep doing this thing, man. I like this.
We're going to keep
Yeah,
doing
it's
it.
good, good little gig.
Thanks again, friend.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, guys, till next week, we'll have another fabulous guest, another character from Storybook Capital of America. Thanks for tuning in.